surface on the Sparta Mountain line too. So we'll see track work up there.
Gary Kazin says the Western Maryland Scenic needs to replace 50,000 ties.
I think there's some dispute with that. I'm not an expert, but somebody who's far more expert than I am, Howard Pincus, says they don't, that would be like the entire line. So,
yeah, if that, I don't think there are 50,000 ties on that railroad, but.
Okay, Steve Barry, he's another good guy.
Yeah.
16,000.
Okay, 16,000 is much more realistic. Yeah.
We're good to go whenever you want to switch the screen share, Rich.
All right, you want to move the rest of the board to the.
Absolutely.
And we'll go from here. All right.
Okay.
All right, Dennis, you want to share your screen?
Yeah. Let's just get this. This is the part that always gets me. Slideshow. Let's see. How's that, fellas? Do you see it?
We could see your PowerPoint. You just need to go full screen, I guess.
Got it. That it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Dennis, take it away.
Well, thank you. You can hear me correctly, right?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Well, folks, my name is Dennis Livesey, and like anybody else my age, I've been enamored by locomotives, well, since the 1950s. And when I first saw New Haven trains at Amerenik when I was 2, and then when I got a Lucius Beebe book from my father, High Iron, well, that was when I was 5. Well, the die was cast. So, 65 years later, here I am. Now, this is a little bit of a homecoming for me. I don't think anybody will recall, but I was a member of Tri-State in 1988. I had greatly admired Tri-State and all that was going on, excursions, block line. I tried to become an actual member, but work and family and the distance from Manhattan to Dover was a little tough for me. But anyway, I made a commitment for the 1988 NRHS convention. Of course, that particular convention had its challenges, but I prefer the memory I had. I was one of the car hosts, and I was on the list, the crew list of under who the heck is that guy, Dennis Livesey. And it had been a long day with the 765. We'd gone from Hoboken to Port Jervis and back, and it was dark. Everybody was off the train, and we were cleaning out the cars. And I was exhausted. It was, 16-hour day, what have you. And fortunately, the owner of the New Haven club car had some food and gave us all some food, as we were all very hungry. Now, we were having to move the consist and the locomotive back to Mountain and that was where my car was, so I was riding. Well, I was exhausted. I ate. I crawled into one of the darkened bedrooms and lay down on the couch. That began one of the most magical moments in my life, because it's night, we're running track speed, and the 765 is pulling our train, and it's one of, as you know, one of the most magnificent steam locomotives ever. And I'm lying there half asleep. The things are going by the window. The crossing gates are going ding, 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 ding. And of course, that magnificent whistle blowing all the way. And this was the sole time I've ever been asleep on a high-speed train pulled by a steam locomotive. So I thank you, Tri-State, NRHS, for that wonderful experience. So Now, coming back here, back in the 80s, I never thought I would ever be in this position to present to you guys, or ever have anything good enough. And I hope you guys enjoy this. So anyway, let's start it. Steam, steam, steam. It is my 45-year retrospective of exploring fire, water, and steel. Steam locomotives are living beasts. They breathe and exhale steam. They snort and rumble and intimately interact with their human handlers. Sadly, I never saw one run until after the demise of mainline steam in 1960. So this is the result of my repeatedly seeking the beast out to unearth just what attracts me to this man's first machine that tells you at every turn it is alive. With these images, I tried to recreate, capture, and understand the time when steam was king, a time I never knew. Our first title page here is Baldwin Locomotive Works number 26 of Steamtown. Let's see if this thing works. Ah, excellent. In August 1974, I was a newly minted NYU Film School graduate. I was on a cross-country trip with my fellow film students, Rob and Amy, on our way to make it in Hollywood. On the way, we made a side tour to Durango, Colorado, and armed with my Nicormat camera filled with Ektachrome film, I stepped into that roundhouse for the first time. When I did that, all the Rio Grande narrow gauge photos from Lucius Beebe, Charles Clegg, and Jim Shaughnessy just sprang to life. This is the first railroad image that I've taken that had any sort of artistic merit. All the stuff from years before, you don't want to see. Skipping ahead a bit to 1981. And this was my first Steamtown Railfan weekend. It was two of my favorite rail photographers, Don Ball and his good friend Jim Boyd, orchestrated the event. Your longtime tri-state folks will certainly remember Jim Boyd. From the last setup of the weekend, I left the crowd over by the right because I wanted this, a broadside with a reflection. There was but one other photographer out there near me. I didn't know him at the time, and it might have been Steve Barry. Anyway, this was very anxious. The light was just about gone, and the sun had set behind me. There's no light, and I'm using, a Tri-X 400, and I'm squeaking out, I don't know, like a hundredth of a second, just hoping this wouldn't be blurry. And I got this one. In the fall of 1995, this was an East Broadtop Fall Spectacular. This is, of course, Rock Hill, Pennsylvania. And the fascinating thing, of course, about the EBT is everything is original to this spot for over 100 years. The shops where every bit of rolling stock was maintained, built between like 1905 and 1925. And it's a miracle that they're here. We can thank the Kowalczyks and now the East Broadtop Foundation for finally giving this incredible gem the due it so deserves. East Broadtop number 12 and the firemen. At the time I was taking this, I just wasn't quite sure, well, who's going to watch this? I mean, no magazine's going to run this thing. Doesn't show the whole engine. But I liked it. Here we are at nice Jersey shot site. Ross Rowland, of course, brought C&O 484 number 614 to New Jersey for a set of Hoboken to Port Jervis, New York excursions. Built by Lima in 1948, the 614 was the USA's last commercially built passenger locomotive. I wanted to try and get a shot of number 614 in the scene far away from Appalachian Mountains. And what better than New Jersey meadows? this was, a kind of a grab shot. I mean, the light was spectacular this particular morning. The sun's coming right over the New York City skyline and hitting Hoboken, and the steam stuff. This was shot with Fujichrome and a good meter on my Nikon FM. Good camera, good meter. If I'd been shooting Kodachrome, I probably would have screwed up the exposure and it would have been too dark. But here, it worked out pretty well. It was on shots like this that I started to learn, well, maybe there's something to this getting up early. From here on, I'm going to reference a lot of these pictures, I guess, as this kind of dreams come to life. And this one, I think, is a good one to start with. The low clouds, the heavy rain, just contributed to this ethereal kind of quality. And this steam was, this is the kind of steam that had been in my dreams. So this is September 2008. This is Nicholson, Pennsylvania. I had waited over a year for this opportunity. And I had sat in my car in the graveyard that's just east of town, west of town, up on a hill, so you get some elevation on that humongous pile of concrete. And so he was starting up. They'd been there for about 15 minutes, so everybody could take in the view. And it started up, and it poured like just buckets. That's why it's kind of. And I'm in my car because I didn't want to get soaked. So I'm turning around like this, but I'm trying to get elevated enough, and my leg starts screaming in pain. And of course, in my back pocket, my phone starts ringing. All at this moment, but that's how it goes. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like about digital is how, I take pictures and I just, I'm following. I did this just the other day out in Metuchen in Rahway. If something grabs the eye, I go to it and I take something. I liken this to like I'm gathering data. I don't really think about it. Things are happening too quickly, things too fast. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to chimp it or anything like that. I just shoot. If my eye likes it, okay, shoot it. This one I did. I brought it home and I first looked at it, God, this is nothing. And then, one of those evenings where I'm sitting around trying to figure, passing time, I looked at this thing, well, what if I do something with it? Processing, do the other half. Take the raw data and make something out of it. Kaboom. This showed up. And it just gets this magical quality. It's strange. You don't see all of the locomotive, but it doesn't matter. It's got all the steam and you get the guys and so forth. That's Ray Libby over there on the left. He's carman. And the guy over there in the cap, that's Micah Prisco. He's one of the mechanics there. Big guy. He saw this photo and said, "Why is it so dark?" Anyway, this one was pretty interesting. In the far background, of course, is the old DL&W shops. Well, not far from where I had taken that photo is this. This was this date will be forever emblazoned on my head. It was January 17th, 2009. Now, with these pictures, this one, again, I took the photo. Of course, it was color, digital. Came home and I thought, well, what does this look like in black and white? And again, it goes boom, and I just the tones, the quality, and stuff. I worked, very hard to make sure that I got some action with the conductor and the engineer doing the, the pass off of the brake test. There's one other guy there. You sort of see him. I was trying to cut him out, but for this, when I first saw this on my computer, right here in this very room, it was a stellar moment for me personally. It was an epiphany, so to speak, because the first time ever I felt that I was in control of the camera. Now, I remember shooting all this stuff. It was fantastic. It was 10 below, the sun, the light, the clouds, and so forth. It was all exciting. I felt that it was exciting. But it wasn't until I got home and processed the thing that I could see this and this. Well, I didn't so much become a man that day, but I did become a photographer. From then on, I'm telling the camera what to do. The camera's not telling me what to do. That, the final note, the guy in the cab is Aaron Stout, and the guy on the ground is Leo Cheswick. Little did I know that within a couple of years, I'd be working with these guys. They're both a fantastic engineer. Leo's one heck of a conductor. Here we go again. There's the 3254, and I call this Day is Done. And I mean, I'm thrilled that there's a genuine roundhouse in Scranton and doing what it was meant to do. This very place resonated to the work and clangs and bangs of thousands of men, thousands of locomotives on these very floors, on these very walls, to get this. And now, one of the things is normally it's really hard to take photos in roundhouses and so forth, but if you look on the ceiling, you see these selenium vapor lights. They're not period whatsoever. But what's really cool for this thing is a lover of classic black and white Hollywood movies like Casablanca or something. Notice how we get 3 points of light here. We've got lots of direction. We've got backlight, we've got side light, and so forth. And it gives such depth and dimension, and that long shadow and so forth. It just makes the two engine men pop. Front is Don Young, and his fireman is Jim Yarwood. Classic. I mean, they got their grips. They're about to go sign off. How many of you guys have seen this? This is the classic Ring of Fire. Over on the right is J. David Conrad, and we're at the Valley Railroad in Essex, Connecticut. And this is 2010, and I volunteered a few days helping them, I hope I wasn't too much of an annoyance while they were working on the 3025, the Chinese locomotive. Apparently all the drivers were fine, except this one tire they had to sweat off. And David, had me carry these big rings and put it there, and he fired it up, and we let it cook for about 40 minutes, and got a crane and took that sucker off. But the flame, cool. And here we are, seeing her actually moving. This is, again, at old, it's not too far north of the depot, Old Deep River Road, I think it is. It's used a lot as a photo location. And I'd seen shots here, particularly by Tom Nanos, who I greatly admire to this day as a superb photographer. This took about 3 years. My first two attempts the previous years, this one weren't working. But here, it worked. Note, there's a light coming in from the left of the picture. And then, of course, there's one on the right hitting the tree and the tender and a bit of the fireman. And I also put a third light, as you might guess, behind the locomotive, because I wanted to capture that cloud. I was fortunate enough to meet Winston Link at a studio. I have 3 of his prints on my wall. And he often spoke about depth. This is the challenge that any photographer is working in a two-dimensional frame. You're trying to give some depth to the picture. It makes it more immersive, make the eye appreciate it. And that's what worked pretty good here. I think he got a good foreground element and goes on back. I think the master would have grunted approvingly. 765. She came to visit Scranton, and just like the first time I saw her in 1988 in Boundbrook, I hopped up into the cab that day. I did it again this day, but fortunately, I actually knew the engineman this time, and I got to ride around a little bit with her in the yard. That was really cool because these are the tracks that, as a volunteer, yard conductor at Steamtown, I run trains on these very tracks. Of course, I was rather used to the 3254 and the 26, the 060 switcher we have. Sitting in the cab of this thing, it's enormous. It goes on. I cannot imagine, a big boy. Now, in contrast to the 614 in the Jersey Meadows, I wanted to contrast the 765, flatland mainline mauler to a mountain mauler. Here we are deep in the Lehigh River Gorge at the front doorstep, pretty much, of the Jim Thorpe station on one of those excursions when she was visiting here in 2015. Now we go from enormous to diminutive. In case you don't know, this is in Shepscott in Ulna, Maine, on the WWNF, the Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington. This was my first visit. I think this was 2016. And this is the Monson number 3. And they were making it up, with a flat card to make it, simulate how it was back in its day on the Monson, when it would shove flat cars around with slate, which was the commodity of that railroad. And, so this is kind of dreamy, because magic happens every day at this place. And the magic started with the dream of one man, Henry Percival. As a child, Henry played on the abandoned roadbed of the WWF, and he wanted to see that railroad run again. But unlike most dreams we have, this part of the railroad has been rebuilt, and it's on its original roadbed. Much of the equipment is original to the railroad, including number 9, their other steam locomotive, and passenger car, and so forth. Here we see Hansel Farden, fireman trainee, and Bill Pinch. Each engineer watched the water delivery to Monson 3. Also on the WWF. Sometimes I'm asked, what do I prefer, color or black and white? I would say that either mode are merely tools to convey the artist's intent. That being said, I think we could all agree that by stripping out the color, we do simplify our intent. Black and white has such power because the contrast of black and white directly mainlines that intent to the viewer in ways that color can't quite do. It's just elemental, just black and white, two simple things, binary, very simple. It really gets to you, and that's the success of black and white, which is ironic since we do not see in black and white, we see in color. So why is black and white effective? It's because of that power of the contrast. This, of course, is not of course. this is a location at the WWF. They call it Top of the Mountain. And this locomotive originally ran here in 1933 for a few months. Also behind it is the coach. It also ran on this. Now, back then, this was the top of the railroad's ruling grade. You know, Mike, you can agree, every railroad has a ruling grade. It may be 0.1, but it's the grade, the hill. Anyway, often southbound freights had to double this hill, as you guys know. They would about a mile back of this, north of this, they would drop off one half of the train, bring up one half here, then go back, tie it down, go back, get the other piece, bring it back here, and proceed on down the next few miles to Wiscasset. Generally, it was a lumber railroad, and that's what they did. I did this particular one with my 12-foot camera pole. I just, you know, it just added something to it. Over on the left of the picture, where those stubs are, they plan to make a working steam-driven sawmill, which would be very apropos. Every photographer has favorites. Well, this is one of mine. I feel it says railroading from the human level, like few others I've taken. Now, this is Brakeman Bill Baskerville. Fortunately, he was very stoic, didn't move very much, and I kept lowering the shutter speed because I wanted that blur. I wanted to create not only depth but movement. Just a straight thousandth of a second would have rendered everything sharp and still, and it would look like we weren't moving. I wanted to prove to everybody that we were moving. Fortunately, Bill didn't move an inch, and I jammed myself against the doorway. And one of the things is that you know, whether or not things are going to be sharp, it's a risk. It's like panning. You don't know. So to increase your chances, what you do is you take lots of pictures. And there were, I don't know, 30. This one worked. Probably everybody's favorite mold. Here we are, adorable little 89 at Strasbourg. I don't know the fireman's name, but it's the morning, he's blowing her down, making sure she feels all nice and clean. My fellow filmmaker, Steve D., called this a perfect railroad mise-en-scène. In English, that means an artfully arranged set of storytelling elements for stage or screen. So up in the corner there, we have engineer Tom Wyatt, who's a retired Amtrak engineer who started on Penn Central and with GG runs. Wow. And he's looking down at his fireman, Jack Emmerich III, who's dumping the ash. Jack's own father was an Amtrak engineer who was a young fireman himself. In 1969, was one of the firemen on NKP 759 on Ross Rowland's Golden Spike Centennial Limited. Trainman Doug Knoop completes the scene. Kenny Gantz, National Park Service ranger at Steamtown, was, pretty much the house photographer, and he's taken many wonderful pictures, wonderful stuff. He had taken one that was like this of the 2317, and I went to the same location, which was, I don't know, I think it's a milepost 130. Don't hold me to it. But anyway, the idea was to have the locomotive there and this huge mountain behind it. Not unlike the the 765 shot in Lehigh Valley Gorge. So I went there and I brought along my longest lens that I had, which was an old Nikkor manual focus, put it on my digital camera. Since it was manual focus, there was no chance of my using autofocus or anything, but I did it the old-fashioned way. I set my zone of focus to right to that spot, and I just waited for the locomotive to arrive at that area. Okay, so she's coming up, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it, and she comes around the corner, and it was at that moment I noticed that there was a wind coming up from behind the locomotive, behind the train. It was pushing, and as it kept coming up the grade, it's about a 1.4% here. The wind kept piling on the exhaust into this incredible plume of, just like a cotton candy. I was like, oh, wow. It was very exciting in the viewfinder. And I just couldn't believe I had gotten this. And won a prize with it. Ron. This is Ron Kumano. I call this, Ron was overseeing conductor trainee today here at Steamtown. And that was somewhat problematic, but it wasn't in comparison to what happened shortly after this. We had a break in two. I think what happened was that the pin hadn't fully dropped when they did the coupling of the locomotive to the two-car concept. So, but anyway, my first time I worked with Ron, the absolute epitome of the crusty conductor, he told me, he said, don't stand if you can sit, don't walk if you can ride, and don't do anything you can't get another guy to do. He's great, a great guy. Steam locomotives are pretty big. You may look at all the pictures you want in books and say, oh, that's a little switcher and so forth. And then you stand next to it and all of a sudden it'd be, a standard gauge locomotive. Well, you're the one who's little. And steam locomotives are even bigger inside. So, by this time, this is around, it was October of 2010. They'd gotten used to seeing me, and they pretty much let me run around. But I didn't, abuse the privilege. I couldn't help myself. I went into this area, grabbed this shot. Aaron Stout is backing up the 54, and it's Mark Therio, the shop mechanic of the day, after he made sure she was all good for a Moscow run that day. And here we have the 26. See what I mean about little? It's a little locomotive. Look how big it is. This was Baldwin Locomotive Works number 26's first day of operation after a 17-year overhaul. On the rods, that's Paul Therio again. That's Paul Radcliffe, another volunteer conductor, who's about 10 years older than I am, and he hops around like a jackrabbit. He's my hero. I don't know how he does it. And that's Mike Rinkunis's shadow. I like the textures here, the softness of the uniforms and clothes, the hardness of this fabulous machinery built, let's see, 102 years ago, right? 101 years ago, 1929. This, This was a Santa Claus train at Steamtown, 12/8/2019. And it was another bitter cold day. And, I love those days because, as you can see, you get these incredible steam vapor effects. And in delighting I delighted myself in flouting the convention and shooting into the sun, shooting into the light. I remember a popular, or shall we say, well-known picture-sharing website of railroad photos admonished against backlight. When I first started running into this, after decades of being in the movie business where we love backlight to give it shape and contrast and excitement and drama. What are you talking about? Front light only? So this, as you can see, the black and white contrast. I think it's kind of fun since it's obviously a couple of coaches and it's a switcher, but I like to think it has a little bit of the drama of a great steam locomotive limited of the 1930s. This is number 26. She's having a mandated 30-day inspection. What they do is, she was working on a run, and to empty out the steam in the boiler, it's sort of a small swimming pool amount of water and steam. They open up the snifter valves and just let it blow. It's a cacophony that is pretty amazing. I wear earplugs when this happens. Andy Gardenia was on hand, and I had him walk toward me, give me that human element. And again, that backlighting contrast. Baldwin 26, about to be eaten alive by the whale of Naog Tunnel. Well, not really. She stopped. I'd gotten permission from the engine crew and from Steamtown to be here. So don't try this at home, kids. I love the fact that Naog Tunnel it's pre-Civil War. This was 1855. The 750-foot long tunnel has been around since before the Civil War and still sees daily traffic. Incredible. Now, yes, there's graffiti, but while I could have photoshopped it out, I didn't, because I think this also tells the story of steam today, which is that reality. Not everything can be post-dated to somewhere in the past. I just think the contrast of the beauty, the snow and the steam and the locomotive and the tracks, contrast with the graffiti. Oh, back on the platform, the 26th, that same cold day. Dominic Tardagno, the eminently qualified engineer, he's just opened up the cylinder cogs, and he's going to do a backup move of some sort. And that's why all the steam is coming out. The steam on the left cylinder is coming out and hitting, you see that kind of square piece of concrete? Well, that's a water column, a D-L&W water column. And so the steam hit that and shot itself up and obliterating the sun, which you see is a little tiny dot there on the right. I mean, this is really extreme steam. I never made a shot that was more personifies the steam locomotive is about. So this is what you're seeing with the 0-degree weather and condensed steam. Now, like roundhouses, water towers are few and far between. And I'm so grateful that Strasbourg has one. Here we see firemen filling the tank on their Great Western number 90. 90? Yeah, I think so. Don't have it written. So this was in October of 2019. And there happened to be a certain other locomotive there that day. What could it be? Just for 50 years, I always wanted to see a mainline steam locomotive at a water tank. And all those times, 611 has worked in preservation since 1981 or so. I don't think it's ever had a drink at an actual water tank. This, of course, is the Strasbourg, which was interesting time. I mean, a little short line of only a few miles in length, hosting a mainline steam locomotive. There were people who stopped at it and said, oh, that's ridiculous. But the thing was that we owned the track, we could do whatever we wanted, and we came up with images that, well, you couldn't get any other way. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity. Like this. This one is probably my favorite steam locomotive shot ever. It just personifies to me what mystery, the dream, they're scary. They're huge machines. They're very powerful. If you don't treat them right, they go kaboom. So, and to be able to photograph one of the finest steam locomotives ever built was a wonderful thing. Now, granted, the original dream, this particular place, one of the things about Strasbourg that's so cool is that it's on a plain. There are not a whole lot of mountains. Wherever, railroads love to be in river valleys, the water level and so forth, particularly here. And so they're almost always in valleys. So there's not wide open, but here, or whatever the topography, it's high enough that the hills are low. So normally over there to the right of the locomotive, sun's coming up at this time. There's a big sun right there. And the day before, 24 hours before, there was a fantastic sunrise. I didn't get that. I got this. But in some ways, I'm happier with this one. I happen to call this one Fury. It is technically flawed. There's, the lettering's kind of smushy, and the cab running board is segmented and so forth. However, engineer Shane Fredrickson, you can see he's bending 425, this big beast, to his will. He's making it do what he wants. And I think it's one of the most thrilling shots I've taken of a steam locomotive. I think this one may speak better to our mind's eye the excitement of steam locomotives, of railroading in general. Not everything has to be crystal clear, perfect. Our dreams, they're not always crystal clear and perfect. So this, I think, goes more to the heart, the emotion, which is what I find interesting. I'm about the emotion. As you can see, these are not regular roster shots and stuff like that. That's important. Historic documentation is important. We've got to be able to know what this looked like then and so forth. But there are plenty of people who do that really well. I didn't need to add to that. This is where it works for me. I like capturing what it is that makes us excited about this stuff. I tend to think that all of us started, as that little 3-year-old kid at trackside, nervously holding hand of a grown-up, and this train goes bam, and we're terrified. And like all little kids who are terrified, they say, "Mommy, can I do that again?" I think all of the efforts that we do, the models we make, all the pictures we take, all the collecting we do, all the work is all in an effort to recreate that excitement, that thrill that we felt so long ago. That pleasure, that happiness, that excitement is what I think makes rail fans do what they do. I do want to say I got this shot because of wingman Orrin Hellbach. His incredible knowledge of the place and his chops with driving a car and his generosity. It is, this is a shot of, again, at the WWF. I think that's the original coach of the Wiscasset in Quebec. That's, it used to run on trains, that very roadbed. Amazing. So anyway, this is shameless plug time. In case you haven't seen it, over here is my book. But here's a better shot. You can pick this book up. I did this. This was published in 2017. Got critically well reviewed on a certain large website that you can buy it from Amazon. And I think Jeff Bezos is having a sale, so be sure to pick one up. Bonus, if you send it to me, I'll sign it and send it on back to you. So, final little speech. As you can see, I have an attraction to the drama and thus create images of chiaroscuro and its attendant high contrast color and light. As pointed out to me by friends, I'm influenced by 3 decades working on movie sets as a camera assistant. For while I generally was unplacid on the outside, the truth is, inside I loved being emotionally moved by all the wonders of the earth and the universe. I chose the railroad as the place to explore these wonders. And in the document versus interpretive debate of railroad photography, I'm sure you figured out which side I'm on. Anyway, I missed out on seeing real steam before it was gone in 1960. Like many others in the years that followed that date, I wanted to experience the glory of steam in any way I could. Therefore, I'm eternally grateful for all the people who've kept steam alive, for everyone, and not allowing steam's allure to fade. However, this does speak to the very fact how seemingly permanent things are anything but. Wish to leave you with thoughts from railroading's finest writer, David P. Morgan. This little quote is from when he was talking about a 1980s visit to an abandoned railroad that he and Philip Hastings had experienced during their incredible search for steam in the 1950s. Morgan wrote, "How temporal is transportation? Here, the Illinois prairie is erasing the Big Four just as surely as the North Atlantic had smoothed over the wake of the Mauritania, the Rex, and the Ile-de-France. Transportation may be built for the ages, but more than most agencies and work of men, it had best be enjoyed at the moment, never assumed, ever considered an expendable experience. Look away, look away." I wish to thank Tri-State very much for this opportunity. It's a wonderful homecoming. Personally, this is one of the coolest things that's happened in quite a while. I really enjoyed being able to present to Tri-State. You guys, the organization, had a hand in forming this. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much.
And
All
thank
right.
you, Dennis. We very much appreciate it. Hold on.
Mike Delvecchio speaking from outer space.
You're muted, Mike.
Now you're completely muted, Mike. Can't hear you at all. Oh, a nice hand shot. We love you, Mike.
You're still muted, Mike. There you go.
Okay.
Much better.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dennis. That was very enjoyable, especially hearing you put your intentions into it. I have your book. I've seen some of these images before, but to hear your mind, what was in your mind's eye when you shot them was really terrific. It's quite a treat.
Absolutely. I mean, I always wondered
you.
I always wonder what was going through the mind, our friend or mentor, Winston Link. When I first started seeing his pictures in 1983, for real, all of them, I think, what was he thinking? How did that happen? So yes, I can certainly understand the appreciation. That's why I try to tell you something about what was going through this thing.
And Dennis and I have traveled together. We went into Link Country to follow 611, and Dennis took me to Winston's grave. And but we had a good time, and we were talking about Winston a lot during that whole process, and it was fun watching both of us work.
Yeah,
and
great time, great trip.
Yeah, yes, it was. And Dennis, we've been talking about having Dennis do this show for a long time, so we're glad all the stars aligned tonight. So thank you very much, Dennis.
Yes, thank you, all of you guys.
If anybody has any questions, please message them in.
Sure.
Some of my favorites of yours, Dennis, that picture of the fella hanging off the back of the WWF with everything just worked with that one. The track is just blurred enough. I know you weren't going as fast as the picture implies. And that cut tree makes it, because that's the country you were in the sawmill country up there. And there was a cut tree just past him that really puts it all into context. I wonder if the 2 footers up there, do those guys wear beards while they worked?
Well, yeah, there's several guys up there with, hairy faces.
No, I know that today. I'm talking about in the old days. I know most steam guys didn't wear beards just because a beard would catch fire if you're an engineman.
Right. Yeah. I was just remarking today, looking at some 1920s photo of an EBT machine shop crew. Virtually all of those guys were clean shaven, just a couple walruses. But I tend to think that there were plenty of beards pre-World War I. After that, it became more fashionable to shave, even for the working men. So there are plenty of shots of engine men back in the day with beards.
And another picture of yours that just drives home to me is that shot of the 425 through the trees at speed with Shane and hanging out and working the machine.
Yeah.
Dennis and I both look for lights and darks when we shoot, so it's kind of fun to watch that happen, because that's what it takes to make. I tend to prefer color, but I love black and white, and again, you make the shapes with lights and darks to create the shape. That's how Winston did it. That's how everybody did it from Andrew Russell to now. So.
On the point of lights and darks, we actually had a question to that technique from one of our outstanding young photographers. Dennis, do you have any advice or a preferred technique for striking a good balance in the lighting in some of your sunset scenes, like the shot with 611 and the coaches that you showed a few minutes ago?
One of the things about photography is as you go along, you just do it, and everything becomes intuitive. Because particularly when things like that, particularly when action is happening, you have to shoot fast. I look at, I wear 3 cameras with 3 different lenses on it. So I'm not losing anything to a lens change. But light is obviously the embodiment of all photography, because without light, there's nothing to do. Your fancy Canon, Nikon, Sony is just a paperweight if there was no sunshine, no light at all. I like to play what I call chasing the light. And I look for beautiful light. Particularly the end of the day, you see the sun going down, it creates a pattern somewhere. And it's not normally something you think about lighting. Why would I do that? But then the light is so beautiful. God is giving you this gift. See what you can do with it. And I use that as practice, as training, and it helps develop this eye. Now, with human beings and survival, you're always looking for brightness and movement. It gets to a point where after you've done this so many times, thousands of images, you get practiced so that your eye catches light. When you see light that is attractive, you say, ooh, I want that. I want to do, what can I do with that? Because of digital and so forth, yes, I put on my highlight blinkies and to help, I'm sorry, hold on. I do that, so I don't overexpose the really bright stuff. So I'm trying to make that happen. And then hope that the dynamic range of the camera can dig enough out of the shadows. But there are plenty of times when I just let it go really black anyway. Because I find that with contrast, your eye, when you have good contrast, not bad, ugly contrast, but good contrast, what happens, I find that it makes my eyes dance. It gives me pleasure. Like the shot of 3254 and 10-degree weather with Aaron and Leo passing off the brake test. That kind of contrast was beautiful to the eye in reality, and was even accentuated, I think, by converting it to black and white. So look for good light, look for the bright stuff, see the attractiveness, see what you can do to not overexpose that, or not too much, maybe a stop, and make sure that the shadows aren't too horrendous, if possible. And that's about what I can say.
Thank you.
Sure.
A lot of compliments here about your work as art, and lots of folks who have really loved your presentation.
Great.
One other comment, I assume the answer to this is yes, but your film education, I assume, sort of works into the whole point of view that you have on light and shadow and contrast and composition. Yes.
Oh yeah. I loved photography from when I first got that first BB book and Life magazine coming into the house, and National Geographic, my mother taking me to see Spartacus and Ben-Hur, these magnificent movies. I got excited with music. I played in high school bands. I did plays in high school. So there was this, my brother was a painter as well. My father was, basic shooter guy. But he started me on this because he made these amazing photo albums. All of this stuff got me into the thing, and I decided, well, I really like movies, really like cameras. Let's see what I can do. And I went to NYU Film School and graduated from that. And that started a 32-year career in the motion picture business. I was mostly, I did commercials, I did industrials, music videos, and lots of independent features. All of them, I was like front and center because I was at the camera. So all of this action was happening around me. The director, the actors, director of photography, the lighting. I could see there's that backlight, and here's this Kino Flow kicker, and there's the Obi light, and doing the diffusion and so forth. It was a day. Every day was an education, and working with different photographers, cinematographers was tremendous to see. I mean, Sven Nykvist on this picture, can't see the whole poster, it's called Cannery Row. He lit up an entire stage at MGM in Hollywood in Culver City, and it was just spectacularly beautiful. It's just, how did you do that? And but then also to director of photography Ken Kelch, who was my most frequent employer. We did lots of pictures, including Bad Lieutenant by Abe Ferrara, or Big Night with Stan Tucci and a host of other people. Isabella Rossellini, Campbell Scott, Ian Holm, Minnie Driver. Again, Ken showed how you could do beautiful lighting completely artificially. And it was these aesthetics that I was picking up. Often, Ken was shooting, I remember particularly on Bad Lieutenant, he'd be looking at his meter and he said, I'm shooting, my meter is empty. There's nothing here. So Dennis, make it wide open and open. And that was, wide open being on the aperture of the lens, be it 2.8, 2, or 1.4, it's wide open. And God bless him, man had guts. He would shoot things that just shouldn't have been photographable, but looked fantastic because he, again, had that skill from doing it a million times and seeing what they could do with light, film, the chemicals of the whole photographic process and the lenses. Yes, absolutely. It was that whole education gave me that Charles Oscuro appreciation, that backlit, sort of like what I have here, bright here and with Phil here. Try to make it interesting because we're getting that contrast that makes the eyes dance, that makes, study those photos, study those images, and you'll see that these are the elements. One little secret. If you want to know where the light is coming from, don't look at this, look at the shadow. If you look at the shadow, you can see that the light's coming from over here. Or if you look at the shadow, the light's coming from over here. And that's how that helps you to determine. So you can look at link shots. It was what he did at night. And you can see, oh, he put this over here and he put that there and he put that over there. And that unravels some of the clue, unravels some of the mystery, by giving you the clue. So that's how he did it.
Very good.
And that's why he did it.
Yeah. Unique. Nobody made anything like it. As he said so himself, right, Mike? He did something nobody else did. He wanted to do, shooting trains at night that are moving. So that's what he did.
And the efforts he made, it was miles of wire, huge boxes, containers.
It's hard to believe he did 5,000 on the Northwark and Western project in the 5 years that he did. So that's what, 1,000 4x5 images a year. Yeah. Now, of course,
A lot of work.
I can shoot 1,000 in a day with digital, but that's not quite the same as 4x5.
No, not when you have a metal slide to put in for every one of those. You have to, you got two frames and a film holder. You have to put a slide in, pull the holder out, turn it over, pull the slide out, take the picture.
Jim Shaughnessy told me one thing. He said, I would have a heck of a lot more great photos if I could just figure out how to develop my camera's dark slide.
Yes. And similar, Winston's very last attempt, he did that very thing. Forgot to take the slide out, shot the picture. That was the one at the movie when the trains that passed in the night,
Indeed. Hey,
Johnny Krause was clever. He bolted 2 4x5s bottom to bottom and made a strap that rotated, so he could take a coming and a going, without having to reload.
I would have loved to have seen a picture of that beast.
He told me about it many times, but he didn't have any pictures of it,
Yeah, indeed.
So,
Good old Johnny Krause, fabulous photographer.
yes.
He tends to be, people don't know of him, but I certainly highly recommend you looking to see competent, skilled stuff. He went to the spot, he went there, he framed up, he got the action, he got the shot, and it's beautifully done. Great stuff.
And he did not pass up the diesels. He went out after the steam. Steam was his love, but he shot the diesels along the way. A lot of the steam guys did not,
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're glad that he did.
I think that's all I have from the motoring public. Mike, if you want to make any further comments. And
Well, again, I was just very appreciative of Dennis doing this. This was a terrific terrific night, terrific program. And again, hearing what's in the mind's eye adds a whole dimension to seeing just the pictures themselves. So we got a Dennis Livesey gallery with Dennis there.
Yes, peeling a little, pulling the curtain away a little bit.
Yes, sir.
It's good. It's good. Again, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great
Thank you,
privilege.
Dennis.
I had lots of fun.
Good stuff. Thank you
Happy to have
again.
it.
Obviously, welcome to join us in the future. We have some other pretty good stuff coming up later.
Yeah, well, next month we have the curator of the Winston Link Museum going to give us a presentation. So we're looking forward to that and getting caught up on Link happenings, because since the museum established, you know, a lot of the missing links have been returned, and they all get a special stamp showing the provenance that these were the prints that Winston made and had been missing for so long.
Outstanding. That's
You
outstanding.
did there, Mike. The missing links.
So, Michael, did you want something or? say
No,
something?
I'm just chuckling at your joke about the missing links.
The missing, well, it's pun intended. So,
Very good.
all right, well, everyone. Well, thank you again for coming. For those who are watching, you know, do we have a number of how many we're viewing this time? That was interesting. Last time we had,
Right around 100.
yeah, that's about right. So, and I see
Nice.
as some of the names are coming up, I see friends. I saw Bob Gallegos, for example, from Wisconsin, and so it's kind of nice to see people from around the country coming to the meeting. So thank you all, and we will see you next month.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.